Hi, blessings. Thanks for joining Pizzo's Perfection. I'm coming to you in a different location on my porch, one of my favorite places of all time. And basically, I'm fighting for space. My husband's sitting in the living room, he's exhausted, and I usually am at my dining room table, and he's exhausted, and so you don't want to hear that snoring. And oldest son, who I could just choke over chores, was just doing the lawn, but I'm out here with you. So today's video is all about writer's blues. And basically, I wanted to talk about this topic because I've kind of been in that space a little bit. It's been a little bit of a weird space for me, and I'll tell you a little bit why. When I'm in my drafting phase of writing a new manuscript or preparing a new novel, and I'm in the point where I'm just writing, working with the work in progress, I love that phase. You get to create new characters, you get to try to strengthen them and make them complex. You get to learn new characters that are going to be a part of the story. Typically for me, the way it happens is a character will wake me up and start to tell me their story, start to have a conversation with me, and really urge me to share their story through my writing. And I recently had that happen, and it had been churning for a good long while, but I kept putting it aside because I kept saying, I'm not ready yet. I need to finish working on some of the revision and editing process that I'm going through with some of my other works. And I need to finish working with this editor on another big YA project I just completed that I've talked about in Editor or Not series on this channel. And so I just didn't feel like I was ready to start another project. And that happens, and it's okay, because I feel like all of that processing time, I'm actually developing more of the plot. I'm developing a better understanding of how to craft the story. So I'm okay with that waiting time frame. But what happens oftentimes is the seed of the idea begins. I'm percolating it, really letting it develop, and then one of the characters will say, okay, long enough. I need you to tell my story. And that is just what happened. One day I woke up in the middle of the night, and it was like this character was nudging me every couple of minutes to get up and tell his story. And typically they'll nudge and say, can you please tell my story? And I'm like, go away. I'm not ready. It's not time. Go away. And then eventually what happens is they will say, okay, I'm going to just start telling you my story. And I'm going to tell it to you. And then it'll be a whisper. And then it'll be in a regular conversational tone. And then they're shouting their story to me so that I will get up and actually put their story pen to paper and start to draft. So I had one of those experiences last month where the main character, who is Keelan, was just woke me up in the middle of the night, kept telling me his story, so much so I could not go back to sleep. Finally, he was like, get up and at least pretend that you're writing my story, because it's a good story. And so I went on and I got up and I started writing a story. I actually tweeted it out that, boy, these characters are becoming more and more pushy, so that their story is told. And actually, I love that. I love it. It really makes me recognize that this definitely is something magical and something spiritual, something that takes place that is beyond just me crafting and trying to create something. But there's something that happens in the atmosphere, cosmically, when you're in the purpose of writing, that helps move you forward. And these characters coming to me and telling me their story is part of that. And one of the great things about it is that I hear a lot of writers say that. So I feel like, okay, there's a community in this, and I'm not just crazy hearing voices, but that stories come a lot of times in that way. When I'm in that phase, the phase of drafting, like I am now, telling Keelan's story, I love it. It's adventurous. It's challenging. I'm wrestling with plot. I'm wrestling with the tension in the story, the suspense. I'm trying to determine who's the villain, if there's a villain, who's the love interest, if there's a love interest, what's the meet cute in the romance. I'm trying to figure out the themes that might run through the story, because I'm an educator and that's always bubbles up. I'm trying to figure out motifs and backstory. I'm trying to figure out flashbacks and foreshadowing, all of the elements of good fictional writing. I'm trying to figure that out, but I'm also trying to maintain a certain pace to the stories. First of all, who am I writing for? And when I try to figure out who I'm writing for, that always helps shape the story for me. Because me writing for a woman, a middle-aged woman, is totally different than for me writing for someone who might be a 17-year-old kid. Especially if I have a 17-year-old male in mind, seeing that I'm not a male, that means that I take really special care about making sure I get things right. If I think the book is a book that has diverse characters from different places, trying to get that correct is an adventure. All the research that goes into it, the language, the word choice, just all of that is so challenging for me as a writer that I love it. I enjoy it. It's an experience that I can't even express anything close to what it's like. But it's what I would imagine is like a chemist that's mixing different chemicals and creating different reactions to produce different results. So that's a lot like what that drafting phase is, and I love it. Editing and revising, not a good spot for me. It is painstakingly tedious. It is so tedious. It's so slow. 2,000 words that I can do in 2 hours when I'm drafting, it will take me 2 weeks to revise and edit 2,000 words the first go through. It is tedious, and so I don't enjoy it as much. And you have because it's so slow, it gives all of the opportunity of doubt and all of the opportunity to say that this is not something that I am good at. And I just do not enjoy it as much. I see the benefit of it. I used to tell my students all the time, all writing is rewriting. All writing is rewriting. I try not to send out a tweet without revising. I try not to send out an email without revising. I mean, all writing is revising, and that is really difficult when you are working with a full manuscript. So based on that I'm working with a full manuscript, it's just not a great feeling for me. And it allows a place for a lot of self-doubt and a lot of what researchers are calling today the imposter syndrome to seep into the fibers of your being while you're in that revision stage. So because of that, I have a lot of writer's blues, because I'm wrestling with moving this word from here to there, and then moving that same word back to there. A whole sentence or a whole phrase, chopping up, getting rid of, Xing out whole pages, realizing that some of the plot line is not working, some of the plot points aren't connecting, understanding that some of the characters aren't complex enough, that the tapestry of the story isn't woven tightly enough. All of those issues come into play, which point to the flaws of the work, which then, yes, all work has flaws, but then when you haven't been published, you don't have an editor saying, yeah, we'll get you there, and it's all you shooting sort of in the dark. All of that doubt and worry and concern about, is this something you should be doing as a writer, or are you even supposed to be a writer, comes into play. And I think every single writer experiences that. If I can give you one message in this video about writer's doubt, is that every single writer experiences, through writer's blues, this feeling of self-doubt and imposter syndrome that creates writer's blues, that maybe this is not something that you're good at. Maybe it's not something that you're going to be successful at. So I wanted to talk about that and give just some ideas about how to combat writer's blues, because you don't want it to cripple you and prevent you from moving forward. I wanted to give some suggestions. So I got my handy dandy notebook, even in this beautiful fall evening, and I wanted to go over some of the ideas that I'm percolating it to help me with writer's doubt. And honestly, the sad thing about this is I don't think I ever really felt this until I really started being truly serious about writing novels. Like when I write picture books, and when I was writing like chapter readers and just essays, I didn't have those feelings. But now that I'm in the deep trenches of writing novels, I go through these moments where I just feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, am I on the right track? Is this a well-written story? Like, needing a lot of validation. The more I get into doing this, and this is going on my 15th year, I was looking back and I found my blog that I started to just train myself to get words on the page in a consistent manner. I just found that I thought they had erased it because I didn't re-up it, but I went looking for it, and there it was, and I was so happy as I read through the content and looked at it. I thought it was all great. And so that was really affirming for me. But you don't always have those affirming moments when you're being a novelist and you're just drafting through those manuscripts and taking them through rounds and rounds and rounds of revision to perfect them, so before you submit them out. And you can get stuck in a place of just editing for life and never sending it out, and that may not be your goal. That's not my goal, even though I've been acting like it's my goal. It is not my goal. My goal is to be published, but it's been a difficult process to do the business side of querying and submitting in the midst of creating the work and getting the work better. And so here are some tips that I have to avoid the writer's blues, and to just be about the work as best as you can, not to let the writer's blues deter you from pushing forward in your writing. So we know that the writer's blues has always been in place forever and ever. If you've ever read any of the canon of writers out there, Shakespeare, Langston Hughes, James Baldwin, Zora Neale Hurston, any of those out in the space, if you read any of them, you know that they talk pretty consistently about how they've struggled and wrestled with their work and being able to produce the work well. And I really think it's about growing with each novel. I wish agents would say, no, I see a lot of potential in this, and I'm going to take on this client so that I can help shape this person into growing because of the potential. I don't think agents do that. Agents are all about, who do I know that I can sell this book to? Is this book ready to be sold? And I can do some work with editing and that kind of thing, a little bit, revising. But for the most part, they want you hitting the ground running, because they don't make money until you make money, I guess. So those are my thoughts. I don't have any proof of that, but those are my thoughts. So I talked about what the writer's blues are. And then it's that sense and feeling that you are not supposed to be a writer, that you are incapable of producing good writing. And then I talked a little bit about the current news research that says this is called like imposter syndrome, when you're in any field and you feel like you are not supposed to be there, that you haven't earned the right to be there. I don't believe that in a such thing as an imposter syndrome. Honestly, I know this is a new research term, but to me, everybody deserves a place at the table if you put in the work. That's the bottom line. It doesn't mean that your work is any stellar than any, it has to be at some level to be at the table or do it in the position. Because I work with a whole lot of people in all of the spaces and places I've been in that were mediocre, and they were proud to be in their space and in their place. So I don't really believe in imposter. I think it's a lot of writer's blues is about self-doubt and about feeling comfortable in your skin as a writer, knowing your voice, finding your voice as a writer, and being sure of that. And sometimes I think that means being validated that you found your voice, that you have a story that is intriguing and interesting and engaging. I think the more you hear that from whether it be an editor or an agent or a publisher, or even your readership, if you're self-published, your readership, the more you hear that they're engaged in your story and interested in your story, I think that cuts down on this level of writer's blues that bring about self-doubt. However, how do we combat them? What are some ways, some tips that we can combat writer's blues? And one of the things is, in the church, we call it get among the trees. Get among the trees. And the trees are the people who affirm you and who give you life. And so getting around other writers that are in the struggle, that helps a whole lot. But for me, what I'm finding at this stage of my writing is my trees are those seasoned writers, seasoned novelists who have been there, done that, produced a lot of work over a long period of time. And you can almost find any author in any genre talking about their writing process if they've had any number of books published. So Toni Morrison, I've been just engrossing myself in a lot of her talks, and a lot of her books, and a lot of her symposiums, and in a lot of her conversations. Just really trying to glean from her experience as a writer. And that has been just a pure blessing, a pure blessing. I mean, just the level of understanding she has and the level of experience she has, but also the commitment she has to help grow and develop writers has been absolutely wonderful. I'm sorry if I'm looking off, cars are coming by, motorcycles in the background. That's what it is. But it's just all her talks, I think on YouTube, shout out to YouTube, because you can find everything on YouTube. YouTube is giving Google, for me, it's run for its money. It's like every time I Google something, I think Google is gonna pop up some new place I can go. Always sends me right on back to YouTube. Shout out to YouTube. So you can find almost all of her talks and discussions, conversations on YouTube. And I have been thoroughly enjoying them and just getting my strength and getting my life from listening to her talks and interviews. Someone else is, I'm signed up for the master class, which I love. I don't know. This latest one I have loved. I have listened to some other master class that I felt like the editing was really choppy and not the best way to engage. But I'm thinking of doing something different. But right now I'm a big champion for master class because I am watching Dan Brown, who wrote one of the books he wrote is the Da Vinci Code. That's probably the most famous. It is the most famous because that actually, when that sold and they made the movie off of it, and I remember all the controversy around it and everything, but when that sold and they made the movie off of it, people didn't really know him because I think he had written 3 or 4 other books that hadn't really sold at all, which is amazing to me that he even had a following enough to keep selling books. But you keep doing the work, people will keep supporting the work. And that, so when he wrote Da Vinci Code, that became such a huge bestseller that then caused people to go back and read his other books. And one of them was The Origin, I believe it's called. And his master class, and I believe it's because he came from parents who were teachers, and I believe he might have been a teacher at one point. Excellent. It is exceptional. I probably am going to watch it 2 or 3 times. It is so good. I've gotten so many nuggets, and I don't write the genre he writes. He writes thrillers. Most of them are like espionage or, you know, big, huge, expansive thrillers in faraway places, Budapest and the Vatican, and, you know, these incredible places around the world, and with these huge ideas such as world domination, a virus that wipes out everyone. I mean, just these really, really, really huge concepts to me. So he writes those type of books, and they're huge. They're those 600, 700,000 plus page books. But he breaks down in his masterclass exactly how he does it. And I love it. I love it. I've gotten so much great information from him. So much information that one of his quotes that I have been living on and chomping on, it says, so you get to a point where you don't know what to write, then just, that doesn't matter. Just write the wrong stuff. And then eventually the good stuff bubbles up. Write the wrong stuff. Oh, I love that, because that's giving me permission to just write the wrong stuff. And eventually, what I talked about earlier, cosmically, spiritually, all of this stuff comes together and you begin to unfold what the good stuff is. So I love that. I love that. So him, Morrison, Walter D. Myers, I've been reading a lot of his speeches. Recently, he won the 2019 Children's Literature Legacy Award from the American Library Association, and his son wrote a letter as the acceptance speech to Walter D. Myers, and it was just extremely powerful, affirming, thought-provoking, and I loved it. And right after I read it, I said, I gotta finish this book. I gotta keep telling Key's story. So I love that. I feel like find ways that you can be inspired, whether it is quotes that you put up from other writers or books that help you get there. Bird by Bird, everybody talks about that book. Bird by Anne Lamott. Everybody talks about that book. She talks about how it's tedious and painstaking and can be difficult work to write, but it can be so very rewarding, and you just take it step by step, breath by breath, and keep going. And so I love that. Try to find ways to grow and learn, connect with the community. And when I say connect with the community, I would say try to stay away from other woe is me. If you're woe is me in this writing space, and you're around 20 other woe is me in the writing space, it can do more damage than good, I think. It's okay to have a vent session that lasts one time. My mother used to say, okay, cry them tears out and then get to work. Let's go. Get over it. And I think that's okay. But if you got people in your space that's constantly in the writing space, woe is me, woe is me, I think you got to reevaluate that so that you can move beyond that space and get to work like you really need to get to work. So that's one. I think another big thing is reflect on your accomplishments. Look at what you created in the past. Look at what you've achieved in the past. Remind yourself of how far you've come in your writing. Maybe you want to be at a certain place, which is what I struggle with, and that's one of the things that writer's blues will grip me with, is I'm not where I want to be. But when I really think about it, I'm nowhere near where I started in this writing journey, and I produced some great work, and I'm so much further than I was. I've learned a ton. And so, bugs are coming out, because you know I don't do no mosquitoes. I might be leaving real fast up out of here. Let's see if we can do this so we still save some of the light. So maybe look at what you've accomplished in your writing. Did you start a blog? Did you start a vlog? Have you challenged yourself with your reading list and been reading much more? Have you challenged yourself with just drafting? Have you started writing more than you used to write? Have you completed manuscripts? Have you completed poetry collections? What have you done that you weren't doing before that solidifies that you are a writer, that you are putting in the work to be the writer that you intend to be? I think that says a world and creates a world of difference when that writer's blues begins to attack you about you not really being supposed to be in this space. Gotta stop, because we're gonna have a big old dog barking attack in a minute. Hi. Oh, I don't know where Nevaeh is. She's not barking. So that's one of the things, is that you have to reflect on what your accomplishments are. Think about what you've accomplished in the past and how you plan to move forward. Set some goals for yourself. Actually accomplish those goals. Think about those things when the writer blues are attacking you, saying, oh, you should just stop this. What's the point in this? You know, my motto I live by is, it takes a lifetime to have a life. And so there is no rush. Don't believe the hype of all these stupid people talking about, I'm 20 and published. In my 30s, I was published. It's no age. Who gives a rip how old you are when you publish or accomplish whatever goal you want to accomplish? Who cares how old you are? Just keep doing the work. Keep doing the work. And in today's day and age, they don't want us to quit working anyway. They want you to keep working till you die. So this is great work to do until you die. So who cares if you published a book when you was 20? So what? And who cares if you publish that book when you're 80? If it's what you want to do, do it. So you gotta talk back to the writer's blues. But do that Nike thing and just get it done. Keep moving forward. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is just loving the work. Love the work. You don't have to love the manuscript, but love the challenge of trying to create this book for your ideal reader. If you're a romance writer, can you make it as romantic as possible? Do you visualize that being one of the top 5 Hallmark romance movies, just because Hallmark is really the creme de la creme of romance movies? I mean, that's all they show on that channel. So can you make it one of those? Is it the best historical? Have you dived deep and taught someone something new and challenge their thinking in your historical text. If it's a thriller like Dan Brown, have you layered it with complexity? Have you made it expansive and epic, but also thrilling, where it's paced so quickly the reader can't put it down to find out what's going to happen next? I mean, love the work. Love the work. And all of the other stuff connected to the work, maybe that includes sales or readership or publication or agent or all of the business side of it. Put that aside and just figure out, what do you love in crafting the work? What do you love? Pen to paper? What do you love? Character development? What do you love? The sound of the language, the fluidity of the words, the prose, singing to you. What do you love about it? And hold on to that through those writer blues moments. Hold on to that. And when that writer's blues is telling you shouldn't be doing this, stop wasting your time with this, there's no point in this, start speaking those things that you love about your writing. Say, I love being challenged in creating these characters. I love discovering the ending. I love plotting out the plot points and adding in the denouement and the highest climactic points. And I love story unfolding and me being able to put it down on paper and me being excited about getting to the table and just typing. And find those things that you love about it and hold on to those things. But in the end, remember what I say, it's all cake. It's all cake. Shake those blues off of you. Shake them right on off and keep pursuing it. Don't stop. Tell those stories, because there's a reader out there that needs your stories. So I hope I encouraged you. Remember to like, share. Thank you for joining me on Pizzo's Perfection in this cool little fall evening.